Hi and welcome to Le Studio Marco Primeau. Magic for some and unknown to many, today we're going to demystify what the Midi language is. Whatever the DAW you're using, the type of music or production you're doing, you will eventually use the Midi language, or you may already be doing it without realizing it. So let's dive in right away. The Midi language was created in the early 80s in order to make an electronic instrument control or being controlled by another music tool. Using a keyboard to control another keyboard, or what we've seen soon after its creation, sound modules without keys or even sequencers having no sound internally, made to control other keyboards or sound modules. It was a breakthrough for the keyboard players because they could play on a keyboard and hear the sounds of another one at the same time. It introduced a new era of multi-layered sound being played live and on many records. Let me show you a brief example. Midi stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It is not to be confused with audio content. Midi is a machine language consisting of a series of instructions that will be delivered over time while you play on an instrument or by a sequencer or now by a computer. The purpose varies greatly between units, but the set of instructions was standardized when the language was created. You'll find note heights, length, velocity, aftertouch, sound bank changes, panning, chorus, reverb levels, and many more. Let's check what the language looks like. Here at your left is what MIDI instructions looks like. Those are all notes. And the first information is when they will be played and what note it will be played, and of course the velocity. And if I click here, we'll see everything that MIDI instructions could do. So you can have the mod wheel on the keyboard to modify the pitch and other effects, breathe, foot pedal when you want some sustain or other functions, volume, balance, panning, expression, effects. And if we go further, we get here the sustain, legato, hold, you have release time, attack time. And if we go further, reverb, tremolo, chorus, delay, phasers. I won't explain them all, but it let you have an idea of what MIDI can do. After that, there's other things that MIDI can transmit, but they're not here. Those would not be MIDI instructions, but system-exclusive data transfer. So let's say you want to save up a patch that you modified in your keyboard, send it in the exclusive system, which will be shown on the keyboard itself. So this can go into a patch on your DAW or a file on your hard drive so you can recall the information later by sending in the system exclusive. Included in the standardization was the segregation of the instructions in channels. So a single MIDI link with a cable or a USB MIDI port can carry instructions in 16 different channels, which could control 16 different keyboards or sound module or other tools like reverb units, delays, or even lighting systems. And all that made at the same time. For example, a computer can make a piano sound play on a keyboard using MIDI channel 1 and play strings on a sound module using MIDI channel 2. But it does not end there. You could set the MIDI input of many units on the same MIDI channel input, and they will all react to the instructions at the same time. For example, 20 motorized light fixtures. There is 3 different kind of MIDI ports you can find on an instrument: MIDI input, MIDI through, MIDI out. The MIDI input will receive every instructions but will process only those that are on a MIDI channel the input is set to. The MIDI through will redirect all the instructions received in the MIDI input, and the MIDI output only sends instructions created by the actual unit. So you could play on one keyboard, take the MIDI out to another unit MIDI input, then take the MIDI through of this second unit and set it to the input of a third unit, and so on and so on. At the end, every unit that the MIDI input is set to the correct MIDI channel will play the notes that you play on the first unit. But the chain must always be output to input, then MIDI through to input, then MIDI through to input, and so on and so on. So today, soon to be 2021, why should I know about MIDI? Well, nearly all DAWs have MIDI integration somehow in its operations. For example, if you want to use a virtual instrument, it will be controlled by MIDI data, either by the MIDI track or by you playing it live. So let me show you how most DAWs integrate the MIDI language. Most DAWs have different ways to show MIDI information. Here we see it on a track. I can zoom in. You have an idea of what the instrument is playing. But if I go into the object editor and into the MIDI editor, you will probably see something like that depending on your DAW. First, this part is very similar as what we see on the track, like this. So you can see the notes and change them, change the length. And at the bottom, in Simplitude, we can see the velocity of each note. It's how hard each note was played. So if I play it a tiny bit, and if I change the velocities like this, most DAWs will have different ways of looking at MIDI informations. As we saw earlier, the event viewers shows every single information about what's going on. And of course, you can have this display, which looks like a time frame where the notes appears and a piano roll at your left here. So you can see the notes, and you can also have some kind of beatbox layout like this, where you see all the notes saying what kind of drum parts could play, and then you enter the notes that you want to make a beat. Also, you could see the notes on a staff if you're familiar with classic notations. In addition, many plugins can use MIDI instructions internally. For example, to automate the settings or to control the pitch of a pitch correction plugin, let's say. We could change the threshold of a compressor for the verses, or change the output level of the delay for the choruses of a song. Almost anything is possible when doing automations. Time for you to experiment and report your findings to me here in the comments. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click on the like button, consider subscribing, Hit the bell to get notifications. Leave comments and questions below. And of course, share my videos. It's always a great help.